Jake Collins straightened his navy blue uniform as he stepped onto the polished stone floor of the Galactic Council chamber. The air felt cold against his skin. 7 alien species watched him from their tall seats arranged in a half-circle. Their eyes, some glowing, some blinking sideways, all fixed on the lone human. "Ambassador Collins, you may approach," said Vorks, the Vorethi chairman. His purple skin shimmered under the bright lights. The thin tentacles around his mouth twitched with what Jake knew was amusement. Jake walked forward with steady steps. He had practiced this moment many times. Behind him, 2 human guards stood at attention near the exit. They were the only other humans in the massive room filled with hundreds of alien representatives. "The Council has reached its decision on Resolution 44B," Vorks announced, his voice booming through speakers. "Human expansion will be limited to no more than 3 new planets per century. Human technology development must be submitted for Council approval. All existing human outposts beyond the Orion Arm must be abandoned within 5 years." Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. The Zethians, with their 4 arms and blue scales, nodded at each other. The insect-like Krillians clicked their mandibles in satisfaction. Jake noted how none of them bothered to hide their pleasure. 3 centuries of human cooperation, of sharing advances in medicine and technology. And this was their response. Fear wrapped in politics. "The vote is final," Vorks continued. "The Council expects Earth's compliance within 30 standard days." Jake took a deep breath. This was the moment. "Respected Chairman, honored Council members," he began, his voice calm and clear. "I stand before you not to discuss compliance." The room grew quiet. Even the floating Ixthera representatives stopped their constant movement. Humanity has considered the Council's increasing restrictions over the past 50 years. We have reviewed the 17 previous resolutions limiting human activity. We have noted the special taxes applied only to human worlds. Jake paused, looking at each Council member in turn. Earth has made its decision. As of this moment, humanity is withdrawing from all Galactic Council territories and agreements. The silence broke into chaos. Council members rose from their seats, shouting questions and objections. Vorks banged his ceremonial staff against the floor. "This is not permitted," hissed Zethra, the eldest Zethian. "No species may simply leave the Council once admitted." Jake smiled slightly. "We're not asking permission. As we speak, human colonies across Council space are preparing for departure. Our ships, our technology, our people, all will be gone within 6 months." "This is absurd," Vorks said, his tentacles now rigid with anger. "Where would you go? What would you do without Council protection and trade?" "That is no longer your concern," Jake replied. "We came as explorers, stayed as partners, but leave as free beings." From his pocket, Jake pulled out a small device and placed it on the floor. A hologram appeared showing human ships already departing from dozens of worlds. "You fear our progress," Jake continued. "You restrict our growth. You take our innovations and then punish us for creating them. So we will remove ourselves from your equations." Council member Thexera leaned forward, her feathered crest flattening in worry. "But the medical stations on Proxima IV, the dimensional stabilizers in the Cygnus sector, you cannot simply." "All human technology remains human property," Jake stated firmly. "It leaves with us." Vorks stood, his full height nearly twice that of Jake. "The Council does not accept this. We will block your departures if necessary." Jake shook his head. "There are 50,000 human ships in Council space. You can't stop all of us. And I should warn you, we've been preparing for this day for years." He turned to leave, then paused and looked back at the stunned Council. "You'd never understood us. Humans don't need to conquer to succeed. Sometimes walking away is the most powerful statement." With that, Jake Collins walked out of the Galactic Council chamber, leaving behind a room full of aliens who were just beginning to understand the gravity of what had happened. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the Earth ship Defiant, watching the stars on the main screen. Her gray uniform bore the simple blue and gold insignia of the Human Space Command. She brushed a strand of blonde hair from her face and turned to her crew. "Status report," she said. "All ships report ready, Admiral," replied her second-in-command, Ben Harrison. "The colony on Vega Prime has completed evacuation. 342 ships are now entering fold space." Kate nodded. The exodus was happening faster than even she had expected. After decades of secret planning, humans were leaving Council space with remarkable efficiency. "And the Eden colony?" she asked. "All residents boarded their ships 6 hours ago," Ben said. "They left behind only the structures that were built from local materials. Everything else is gone." On the planet below them, an alien delegation from the Council had just arrived. The Zethians were rushing to claim the now empty human settlement. Kate zoomed in the cameras to watch them. The blue-scaled aliens moved through empty buildings, finding nothing but bare walls and clean floors. "They look confused," Ben said with a small smile. "They expected to find abandoned technology," Kate replied. "They don't understand that we've been preparing for this for years." Across the galaxy, the same scene played out on dozens of worlds. Human colonies that had existed for generations were now empty. Fields that had grown human crops were now bare soil. Factories that had produced advanced technology were now hollow buildings. On New Terra, engineer Linda Peterson supervised the final data wipe of the colony's main computer core. Her hands moved quickly over the control panel as lines of code flashed across the screen. All essential data transferred to secure drives, she confirmed to the small team around her. Beginning final deletion sequence. The aliens would find only empty drives and basic operating systems. Nothing of human innovation or research would remain. 5 minutes until complete wipe, Linda announced. "Everyone to the ships." Outside, the last transport waited. New Terra had been home to over 50,000 humans for more than a century. Now, only Linda and her team remained. "Do you think they'll figure it out?" asked Greg Foster, her assistant. "How much they depended on us." Linda shrugged. "They built their empires on our work without ever giving us credit. Now they can try building without us." The computer chimed, signaling the completion of the deletion process. Linda entered one final command, and the screens went dark. The backup power systems would keep basic life support running for the aliens who would inevitably come to claim the planet, but nothing more. They boarded the transport and lifted off, joining the fleet of ships already gathering in orbit. From space, New Terra looked peaceful, its cities dark and quiet. In the council chambers, the news was spreading quickly. Emergency sessions had been called as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Human withdrawals were happening everywhere simultaneously. "This is impossible," shouted Councillor Drac of the Krillian Empire. His insect-like mandibles clicked rapidly in distress. "They cannot coordinate such a massive operation without our knowledge." "They've been planning this for years," replied Thexera, her feathers drooping. "And we never noticed." Vorx, still reeling from his confrontation with Ambassador Collins, addressed the council. "We must stop them. Send ships to blockade their major colonies." But it was already too late. When Vorathi warships arrived at the human mining colony on Ceres Delta, they found only empty tunnels and deactivated equipment. The humans had taken everything of value. On Earth, President Olivia Ward addressed her people. Billions watched from planets across human space and from ships now heading into the unknown. "Today marks a new chapter for humanity," she said. "We leave behind the restrictions of the Council, but we carry forward our greatest strengths, our ingenuity, our determination, and our unity." As she spoke, the last human diplomatic ships departed from the Council homeworlds. Humanity had made its decision. They would find their own way among the stars. Dr. Sam Brooks sat in his new lab aboard the human station Horizon, watching the broadcasts from Council space. 3 weeks had passed since the exodus began. He sipped his coffee as the screen showed footage of a Zethian hospital in crisis. "The medical synthesizers have stopped working," reported a blue-scaled Zethian doctor. "We cannot produce the treatments needed for the Krillian fever outbreak." Sam knew why. The synthesizers required regular updates from human servers that no longer responded. The aliens had never bothered to learn how the machines actually worked. They had simply used them, relying on human technical support. "Are you still recording these?" asked Natalie Quinn, his research partner. She placed a tablet on his desk, showing data from other sources. "Yes," Sam replied. "It's important to document what happens now. The Council never believed we were essential to their operations." Natalie nodded toward the screen. "They're finding out the hard way." On the Vorathi homeworld, the central banking system crashed for the third time in a week. Without human quantum encryption protocols, their financial networks were becoming unstable. Food deliveries to outer colonies were delayed as navigation systems developed errors that local technicians couldn't fix. "The Council has called an emergency session," Natalie said, reading from her tablet. "Apparently, the Ixthera dimensional gateway started fluctuating this morning." Sam frowned. "That's sooner than expected. We thought they'd have at least another month before the calibrations started to drift." In the Great Council chamber, panic was setting in. Representatives from dozens of worlds demanded answers as reports of failures piled up. "How could this happen?" demanded Councillor Vex of the Ixthera. His translucent body pulsed with distress colors. "Our gateway engineers say the stabilizing field is degrading. Thousands of ships pass through that gateway daily." Vorx, the council chairman, looked tired. His purple skin had dulled, and his tentacles drooped. "The humans maintained those systems. They designed most of the components. Then we must build our own," said Drac of the Krillians. "We have their abandoned equipment. We can reverse engineer it." On the industrial world of Proxus, alien scientists tried exactly that. A team of the best Krillian engineers disassembled a human quantum core. They scanned each component, analyzed every circuit. After days of work, they attempted to rebuild it. The machine exploded, destroying half the laboratory. On the human station horizon, Sam received the report and shook his head. "They don't understand the basic principles. Human technology has been evolving for 3 centuries while we were in council space. We didn't share everything." Natalie looked thoughtful. "Do you think they'll ask us to come back?" "Eventually," Sam said. "But first, they'll try to prove they don't need us." In a secure council facility, Thexera led a team attempting to access human databases left behind. The screen showed only basic information. All significant data, research, and technical specifications were gone. "Try the backup servers," Thexera ordered, her feathers bristling with frustration. A young Vorathi technician looked up nervously. "Counselor, there is something strange. These aren't just empty." The data was carefully removed. The humans didn't rush or destroy anything. They methodically took exactly what they wanted and left the rest perfectly organized. This revelation spread through the council. The humans hadn't fled in anger. They had executed a carefully planned departure, taking centuries of knowledge with them. Food shortages began on worlds that had relied on human agricultural innovations. Transportation systems that depended on human maintenance started to fail. Medical facilities ran out of supplies they couldn't reproduce. On the edges of council space, the first riots broke out as citizens demanded answers. In human space, President Ward received the reports with a calm expression. "How long before they send an official request for help?" she asked her advisors. "The council is still pretending they can manage," replied Secretary Alan Gibson. "But at the current rate of system failures, I'd say less than 2 months." The president nodded. "And we will be ready when they do. But the terms will be very different this time." Human ships continued to move beyond charted space, establishing new colonies and outposts where the council had no reach. For the first time in centuries, humanity was truly free. 1 month after the human departure, Councillor Thexera called an emergency meeting. Her feathers, usually a bright purple, had faded to a dull gray from stress. The council chamber, once grand and imposing, now ran on reduced power. The floating light orbs that had illuminated the space were failing one by one. "We must admit the truth," she said to the gathered representatives. "We need the humans back." Murmurs filled the room. Pride warred with desperation on many alien faces. "Never," shouted Drac of the Krillians. "We ruled the galaxy before humans crawled out of their caves. We can solve these problems ourselves." Thexera pointed to the data screen behind her. 17 major systems have failed completely. 43 more are operating at reduced capacity. The Zethian colony on Proxima I has lost all medical services. 3,000 have died already. The harsh reality silenced the room. Vorks, the council chairman, looked older than he had just weeks ago. "We have sent messages to human space," he admitted. "They do not answer." Meanwhile, in a science facility on Krillos Prime, Captain Rick Hayes led a team of alien scientists. The Krillians had offered him special privileges and protection when the Exodus began. In return, he agreed to help them understand basic human technology. "This is elementary quantum mechanics," Rick explained patiently to the group of Krillian scientists. Their insect-like eyes stared at the diagram he had drawn. "Human children learn this in school." The lead Krillian scientist, Dr. Zik, clicked his mandibles in frustration. "It contradicts our understanding of dimensional energy." Rick sighed. "That's why your attempts to rebuild human technology keep failing. Your basic scientific assumptions are wrong." Across council space, similar scenes played out with the few humans who had remained behind. Most were scientists or teachers who took pity on the aliens and stayed to help with the transition. They quickly found that the gap in understanding was far greater than the aliens had ever realized. On the Ixthera homeworld, the main power grid failed completely. Their cities went dark for the first time in 5 centuries. The crystalline buildings, once gleaming with internal light, stood like dead monuments against the night sky. In deep space, the first major disaster occurred. A Dvorathi passenger ship attempting to use an unstable dimensional gateway without human navigational updates emerged in the wrong location. The ship materialized inside an asteroid field. 4,000 lives were lost. The news spread quickly, causing panic. Citizens who had been told that humans were just one minor species among many now demanded answers. Why couldn't their leaders fix what the humans had maintained for so long? In the council chamber, Thexera played a message from one of her colony worlds. "We've lost 40% of our food production capacity," reported the colonial governor, his feathers molting from stress. "The human-designed hydroponic systems are failing, and we don't know how to repair them. People are starting to hoard supplies. There have been riots in 3 cities." Similar reports came from across the galaxy. Trade routes collapsed as navigation became unpredictable. Species that had been enemies before human mediation started blaming each other for the crisis. "We must try again to contact them," Vorks decided finally. "We will send a delegation into human space. We will offer them whatever they want." The council voted unanimously in favor, the first unanimous vote in decades. In human space, Admiral Sullivan reviewed the reports from their monitoring stations. The humans had not gone far, just beyond the reach of council sensors. They watched as the crisis unfolded exactly as they had predicted. "Another ship is approaching our border," reported Ben Harrison. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies. They're asking for any humans to respond." Admiral Sullivan nodded. "Let them come a little closer. Let them see that we're doing just fine without them." On the main screen, she could see the council ship. It looked damaged, its once proud hull now scarred from poor maintenance. Behind it, the stars seemed to shine brighter for humanity's new beginning. "Should we answer them?" Ben asked. "Not yet," Kate replied. "President Ward says they need to understand exactly what they've lost first. Only then will they be ready to listen." Lieutenant Claire Morgan moved silently through the shadows of Zethian Station 6. Though humans had officially left council space, Claire was part of a small intelligence team that remained behind to observe. She wore a hooded cloak that hid her human features, blending in among the various alien species still using the once busy trading post. What she saw confirmed all their predictions. The station's lights flickered constantly. Only half the shops remained open. The air smelled stale because the advanced filtration systems had stopped working properly. Claire paused near a viewing port and watched as a proud Ixthera warship drifted slowly past the station. Its engines glowed weakly, and it moved without purpose. 3 small repair vessels hovered around it, but they seemed to be making no progress. "Third warship this week," whispered Dan Ellis, her partner on this mission. He stood beside her, also hidden under a cloak. "Their fusion cores are failing without the maintenance protocols." Claire nodded. "The Admiral will want to know about this." The Ixthera fleet was the most powerful military force in the Council. Now they can barely keep their ships moving. They continued through the station, documenting everything with hidden cameras built into their eye implants. The technology was far beyond anything the Council species possessed, one of many advantages humans had kept to themselves. In another part of the galaxy, the effects of humanity's absence were even more dramatic. The once mighty Vorathi Empire had lost contact with 12 of its outer colonies. Their communication network, built with human components they couldn't replicate, was collapsing section by section. On the Vorathi homeworld, crowds gathered outside the Imperial Palace. What started as a peaceful protest had turned violent as food shortages worsened. The Vorathi guards, their weapons malfunctioning, struggled to maintain order. "Where are the humans?" the crowd chanted. "Bring them back." Inside the palace, Emperor Vordak raged at his advisors. How did we become so dependent on them? They were newcomers. They were supposed to need us, not the other way around. An older advisor bowed his head. "We welcome their innovations but never bothered to understand them. We saw their willingness to share as weakness. We were wrong." The Krillian Empire faced similar troubles. Their ships, unable to navigate the complex routes through fold space without human guidance systems, took dangerous detours that added weeks to journeys that once took days. Trade slowed to a trickle. Vital supplies didn't reach their destinations. Civil wars erupted on 3 council worlds as different factions blamed each other for driving the humans away. The Zethian Federation, once united under a single government, split into 4 competing territories, each claiming they could solve the crisis if given control. Claire and Dan completed their circuit of the station and headed back to their hidden shuttle. Once inside, Claire removed her cloak and activated the secure communication system. "Morgan reporting," she said. "The situation is deteriorating faster than we projected. The Ixthera fleet is nearly disabled. Station 6 is operating at maybe 30% capacity." Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on the screen. "Good work, Lieutenant. We're seeing similar reports from across Council space. The political structure is starting to collapse." "Have they made any official contact yet?" Claire asked. "They've sent 3 diplomatic ships into human territory," the Admiral replied. "President Ward has agreed to meet with them in 2 weeks. But first, she wants them to fully understand their situation." Dan leaned into the camera view. "They're learning, Admiral. We overheard a Vorathi merchant talking about how humans never needed the Council. He said we were always self-sufficient while making everyone else dependent on us." Admiral Sullivan nodded with satisfaction. "That's exactly what we want them to realize. For centuries, they treated us as junior partners while using our innovations to maintain their power. Now they see the truth." As their shuttle pulled away from the station, Claire looked back at the once magnificent structure. Parts of it were dark now, and several docking bays appeared damaged. A large ship was trying to dock but kept missing the connection point because the automated guidance system had failed. "Do you think they'll survive without us?" Dan asked quietly. Claire considered the question. "They'll survive, but not as they were. The Council ruled the galaxy for thousands of years before we arrived. But they'll never be that powerful again." Their small shuttle accelerated away, invisible to the station's failing sensors. carrying vital information back to human space. Karen Wells stood in the small communications center on what had once been a secret human outpost. Now it served as a contact point between human space and the collapsing Council territories. As the leading archaeologist who had studied alien civilizations for decades, she understood better than most what was happening. "Transmission ready," said Paul Rogers, her assistant. "We're broadcasting on all standard Council frequencies." Karen nodded. "Begin." Throughout Council space, on thousands of ships and stations, her message began playing. The aliens saw a human woman with short gray hair and kind eyes. What she revealed changed everything. "People of the Galactic Council, my name is Karen Wells. I am a human archaeologist who has studied your civilizations for 30 years. What I am about to share has been classified until now." She touched a control, and images began to appear beside her. They showed humans working secretly behind the scenes across Council space. "Humans were responsible for far more than you realized," she continued. "In the Cygnus sector, human engineers prevented a complete collapse of the dimensional gateway 17 years ago. The Council was never informed because we were ordered to remain silent about our contributions." The images changed to show human scientists working on the Vorathi homeworld during a viral outbreak 8 years earlier. The cure for the Vorathi plague was developed by human medical teams working under alien supervision. We were forbidden from claiming credit. Karen's expression remained calm, but her words landed like bombs across Council space. "Humans prevented 17 separate galactic wars through quiet diplomacy. We maintained the stability of 14 dimensional gateways. We secretly repaired critical infrastructure throughout known space, while being told our technology was inferior." In the Council chamber, the remaining representatives watched in stunned silence. Thexera's feathers drooped completely as the evidence mounted. "The Council had mistaken human humility for weakness," Karen continued. "Our willingness to help without demanding recognition was seen as a sign that we were less advanced, less important." Now her images showed the quantum cores that powered much of Council technology. The designs clearly showed human writing and symbols. Most critically, the Council never understood that humans develop technology differently. "We build systems that complement each other. Removing one part causes others to fail in sequence. This was not intentional sabotage. It is simply how human innovation works, interconnected and holistic." On world after world, aliens watched this revelation with growing horror. The systems they depended on had always been human at their core. "We could not leave to punish you," Karen said softly. "We left because the restrictions placed upon us meant we could no longer help you properly. The Resolution 44B would have prevented us from implementing critical updates to systems that are now failing." In a luxury apartment on the Zethian homeworld, a high-ranking official named Zell watched the broadcast with his family. His scales had turned pale with shock. "Father," asked his young daughter, "why did we make the humans leave?" Zell had no answer. For centuries, the Zethians had prided themselves on their technological superiority. Now he learned that much of what they claimed as their own had been human all along. As Karen's broadcast continued, riots broke out on 6 Council worlds. Citizens stormed government buildings, demanding answers. On Krylos Prime, the ruling council was forced to flee as angry crowds surrounded their chambers. "The council is crumbling," Paul told Karen as reports came in. "Civil unrest is spreading faster than they can control it." Karen nodded sadly. "This was never what we wanted. We hoped they would recognize our contributions while we were still there. Instead, they pushed us away until we had no choice but to leave." In the council chamber, Vorks made a decision. "We must go to the humans. Not just send a message, but go ourselves. We must beg them to return." Thexera looked up, her eyes hollow with realization. Will they even listen now? Would we in their position? For the first time in its long history, the mighty Galactic Council prepared to humble itself before a species it had tried to control. But the damage was done. The truth Karen revealed could not be taken back. And in human space, President Ward received the news of Karen's broadcast with a satisfied nod. Now they're ready to talk. Ambassador Troy Palmer stood at the entrance of the new human space station Freedom, waiting for the council delegation to arrive. The station hung in space at the edge of what humans now call their territory. It was built specifically for this meeting, a neutral ground where both sides could talk. "They're approaching," said Mia Jenkins, his aide. "One ship only," as agreed. Troy nodded. The council had wanted to bring a fleet to show their importance. President Ward had refused. Either they came as equals or not at all. The council ship looked worn. Its once shiny hull was dull and patched in several places. The ship docked slowly, its movements clumsy compared to the smooth precision of human vessels. "Remember, no matter what they offer, we stick to the plan," Troy told his team. "We listen, but make no promises." The airlock opened, and 6 aliens entered the station. Each represented one of the major council species. Vorks led them, his purple skin hanging loosely now, his tentacles moving slowly. Beside him walked Thexera, her feathers still gray from stress. The others looked equally tired and worried. "Welcome to Freedom Station," Troy said formally. "Please follow me." He led them through gleaming corridors that showed off human technology at its best. Everything worked perfectly. The lights were bright. The air was fresh, and smiling humans went about their business efficiently. It was a stark contrast to the failing systems in council space. The delegation was taken to a large meeting room with a window that looked out into space. Through it, they could see dozens of human ships moving in the distance, all functioning perfectly. "The council thanks you for this meeting," Vorks began, his voice lacking its former confidence. "We come to discuss terms for human return to council space." Troy gestured for them to sit. "Before we discuss anything, you should understand our position. Humanity is thriving on its own. We have established new colonies in regions you never explored. Our technology continues to advance without the restrictions the council imposed." "But surely you missed the benefits of council membership," said Krillian Representative Drac. "The protection, the trade opportunities." Troy smiled slightly. "What protection? What trade? The council took from Earth but gave little in return. You classify our technology as primitive while secretly using it throughout your territories." On a nearby human military station, General Alex Carter watched the meeting through secure cameras. With him were Admiral Sullivan and President Ward herself. They observed as the aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "They still don't fully understand, do they?" President Ward said. Alex shook his head. "They think this is a simple negotiation. They don't realize how fundamentally the galaxy has changed." Back in the meeting room, Thexera leaned forward. "We admit our mistakes. We treated humans unfairly. But millions are suffering now. Medical systems are failing. Food is scarce on many worlds." "And how quickly you came to us once you were affected," Troy replied. "For centuries, humans offered help that was taken for granted. Now you value us only because you need us." Vorks raised his tentacles in what humans knew was a gesture of submission. "Tell us what you want. Technology rights? More territories? A seat on the council leadership? Whatever you ask, we will agree." Troy looked at them each in turn. "You still don't understand. We don't want anything from you. Humanity doesn't need the council anymore." The aliens looked stunned. This wasn't how negotiations were supposed to go. In their long history, everyone had always wanted something from the council. "Then why agree to this meeting?" asked Zell, the Zethian representative. "To make sure you understand the new reality," Troy explained. "The old order is gone. If we choose to help some of your worlds, it will be on our terms. But the council as it existed will never control humanity again." Silence filled the room. The aliens had come expecting to offer concessions in exchange for human return. Instead, they found humans had built something better without them. Troy stood up. "This meeting is over for today. You're welcome to stay on the station while you consider your options. But know this, Earth is no longer seeking your approval or permission. As Troy left, the aliens remained seated, too shocked to move. Through the window, they watched human ships moving confidently through space, going about their business as if the mighty Galactic Council had never mattered at all. On the military station, President Ward nodded with satisfaction. Perfect. Now let them think about it overnight. What do you think they'll do? Asked Admiral Sullivan. They'll accept whatever we offer, the President replied. They have no choice, and that's exactly the position they put us in for too long. 5 years passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Susan Blake, a historian on the human colony world New Hope, sat in her garden writing the final chapter of her new book, The Great Departure: How Humanity Reshaped the Stars. Her desk showed a 3-dimensional map of known space. The once unified Council territories had fragmented into dozens of smaller regions. Some were still governed by the old species, while others had formed new alliances. The mighty Galactic Council that had ruled for thousands of years now controlled only a small fraction of its former territory. Professor Blake, your visitor has arrived, announced her home system. Susan looked up to see an old friend walking toward her. Ambassador Jake Collins, now in his 60s, smiled as he approached. He was the man who had delivered humanity's decision to leave the Council all those years ago. The final chapter? He asked, gesturing to her work. Yes, Susan replied. I'm calling it The New Order. It seems appropriate. Jake sat across from her and looked at the map. I never imagined it would turn out quite like this. After the meeting at Freedom Station, the Council had been forced to accept a new reality. Humans offered limited help to prevent complete collapse, but only to worlds that agreed to fair terms. Many did. Others refused, believing they could solve their problems alone. Most of those worlds were now struggling to maintain even basic technology. Have you seen the latest reports from the Vorathi homeworld? Susan asked. Jake nodded. They finally agreed to allow human teachers in their schools. It only took 5 years of decline for their pride to break. Human influence had spread differently this time. Instead of being hidden contributors, humans were now openly acknowledged as leaders in technology, medicine, and space exploration. Alien students came to human universities. Alien ships now used engines openly labeled as Earth design. We're establishing a new colony beyond the Horsehead Nebula next month, Jake said. It will be our 40th new world since the departure. Humanity had thrived in its freedom. Without the Council's restrictions, human innovation accelerated at an astonishing pace. New technologies that would have been forbidden under Council rules now powered an expanding human civilization. And the Earth coordinates? Susan asked. Jake smiled. Still our most closely guarded secret. The Council remnant has offered incredible rewards for the location of our homeworld, but no one has revealed it. That was perhaps the most significant change in human thinking. Before the departure, humans had freely shared everything, including the location of Earth. Now, they understood the value of keeping some things private. On her desk, a message appeared. It showed the latest images from former Council space. A once proud Zethian city was now being rebuilt with human help. Signs in both human and Zethian writing marked the buildings. They're learning, Susan observed, some faster than others. Yes, Jake agreed. The Krillians still refuse our help. Their empire has collapsed into civil war. The Ixthera, on the other hand, have become our closest allies. They admitted their mistakes and adapted quickly. Susan added these final observations to her book, then saved her work. Do you ever regret it? Walking away instead of fighting for our place in the Council? Jake looked up at the sky, where the stars were just becoming visible in the evening light. Fighting would have resulted in war and destruction. Walking away showed true strength. We proved we didn't need their approval or permission to succeed. A small ship passed overhead, its lights blinking against the darkening sky. It carried students from 3 different alien worlds coming to study at the colony's university, not as superiors or inferiors, but as equals seeking knowledge. The old council believed power came from control, Susan said, closing her history book. We showed them that true power comes from independence. The map on her desk updated one last time for the day, showing another former council world requesting human assistance. Jake and Susan watched as the notification appeared, a small reminder of how completely the galaxy had transformed. They pushed us away, Jake said quietly. But in walking away, we found our true path among the stars. Susan nodded. And now they follow where we lead.